This is MFG Out Loud. Courageous conversations about sales and marketing for today's manufacturers. With your hosts, Ray Zaganto and Allison DeFore.
Welcome, everybody, to the next edition of MFG Out Loud. We're so glad you're here with us today. We always appreciate you spending some time with us and our amazing guests. And today will not disappoint. We have Dave Daniels from BrainKraft. And before I let him introduce himself, I want to ask you a question, you listening. Would you love to have a product launch that gets you what you want every single time, that your competitors are jealous of, that all departments work together to make successful? It sounds like a dream, but it is possible. And today's guest can help you do just that. So Dave, welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
Oh, thank you, guys. I'm glad to be here. Wow, I'm like, is that me she's talking about?
Drum roll.
Who is it?
Oh,
It is. So tell everyone about BrainKraft, because I think it's a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, so thank you. Well, BrainKraft was an outcropping of years of working in the tech industry and seeing so many companies screw up their product launches left and right. And it always baffled me. I had a lot of roles in tech companies, whether it be in development or in product management and product marketing and executive positions. And I was always baffled why companies would spend huge amounts of money on developing their products and then totally biff it when it came to launching them. Like, it's Thursday. Yeah, it's Thursday. And I guess we ought to go talk to marketing about launching a product. And then they quickly scramble with a meeting, and then they sit down with marketing, and marketing says, so when are you planning on launching this product? I'm like, well, it's Thursday afternoon. We're thinking like maybe Tuesday. Would that work with you guys? And you know, it was just, and this story is repeated over and over, and it's not just in tech. I've recently had the good fortune of speaking with lots of folks who are in, mid to large size manufacturing organizations. And they're like, oh no, this is are you reading my emails? This is insane. And so BrainKraft started out with, we got to put some structure around this. We got to put some guardrails, if you will. It doesn't have to be rigid and hard, but it has to be at least some level of a framework that says, you start here, you end here. This is what good looks like. This is how you know it's good. And here's how to make sure that everybody's playing in the playground nicely so we get everything done and everybody's ready as best as we possibly can. And so we're getting a lot of good traction on it. And, folks are going, you are just speaking, the problem I had last year and I'm about to have again because they see it's a train wreck. And so we aim to solve this problem. It doesn't matter who you are or what kind of business you're in, we'll fix it for you. And we'll make sure when you launch a product, you can launch it well every single time. Our tagline is product launches your CEO loves and your competitors fear.
Ooh, very nice. Now, I know you have clearly been reading my emails as well. And I don't want to give too much away because I know a lot of you've got an awesome process kind of built out around this, and I particularly love that. What I want to pin down is, the notion of this cross-functional cooperation that is required and that is central to the process that you have. It seems like it's one of those topics that everybody can nod and agree. Oh yeah, we need to do that. But then they don't, because as you say, we launched, we had all these problems, and then they proceed to shoot themselves in the foot the same way, same foot, again and again and again.
Again and again.
What do you see as the difference between lip service to cross-functional collaboration versus actually doing it?
Yeah. So it's like, hey, Bob, go get the incense. We're going to sit around and burn it and sing Kumbaya for a while.
Right.
And it's like, The big issue around collaboration is, especially with the way I like to tell people about product launch, it may very well be the most collaborative activity, the most cross-functional activity you will ever do in the entire organization. Because especially if it's a new product into a new market space, you're touching every corner of the business, everybody, finance, legal, sales ops, manufacturing, distribution, they're partners, right? There's nobody that's untouched. And so the thing is about collaboration within a product launch is the mistake that people make is they think of product launch as purely a marketing activity. It's something we toss over the fence. I call it the trebuchet launch, like the pumpkin chunkin, thing.
Yeah.
You put the pumpkin on it, you hit the thing, and boom, over the wall it goes to marketing. And they go, we're going to launch a product. Would you guys take care of this for us? So they scramble to get the presentations done and the website updated and all the wonderful things that they do. And it never hits the mark. And then we find out that sales has no idea what the product is, or someone sold one and now they get paid their commission, or someone on the customer support team gets a call and they're all hot and angry because they had no idea the product was even in the market yet. And you know the story, Ray and
Sure.
Alice, I don't need to go there. But what happens is most companies do pay lip service to the coordination and the collaboration. And it only takes this much effort to make sure everybody's on the same page. It isn't an angry email from the CEO that says, thou shalt do it this way. Yeah. It's people, if they understand what they're all trying to accomplish, they'll use their ingenuity and their innovation and their experience to do the right thing. Right. So it's a motto that I learned years ago, which is better together. I mean, we can do it all better together if we just have the same, music to sing from, but they don't know what they're doing. So
one thing I've experienced in the past, and I know you have as well, but I want to pick your brain a little bit. Why, I guess, to see if you see it the same way. It's that marketing has been tasked, and I was, my firm was of course the one developing everything for marketing, tasked with how do we say it, how do we talk about it, and how often, and what's it going to, what are the visuals going to look like, and what's the hoopla?
It's the deliverables conversation, right?
Exactly. But then what baffles me is it's almost like keeping it a secret from the other silos. Sales, and my first question to them was, well, shouldn't we bring sales in right now, way ahead of time, so that they're part of this? And they're like, oh, no. Well, shouldn't we? Well, what about operations? No.
Those idiots.
Yeah, it was this fear of resistance, right? Fear of, we don't want them messing up this thing we're trying to do, instead of that working together like you're talking about. And the thing that I saw, and this is what I want to hear from you, do you see the same thing? I think it was that lack of a unified goal. Like you said, if we're all trying to reach the same goal, then we're all working together. But I have seen that goal wasn't really identified clearly and shared with everyone else. Do you?
Where's the button? Where's the ding, ding, ding? Do you have one of those, Ray?
Allison does.
Okay.
You're a badass. I just played it
somewhere. That's it. And it's true of any major, let's just set launch aside for a second. It's true of any major initiative in an organization. If everybody understands what their role is in making it all happen, they're more likely to want to participate and reach out and talk to others. But we have a lot of silos that build up in companies over time. Some of it is just because, let's just face it, they got crappy leadership in a company. Right? That happens. But other times it's just sort of this DNA that evolves over time. Like, don't tell anything to sales. They don't need to know. or, I'd been in those meetings, probably just like you were, Allison, where we're sitting around the table and I've got my marketing team there and we're going, got a couple folks from product, product managers or engineering, whatever. And we're talking to them and we're saying, all right, so let's talk a little bit about the product. Like, give me a high level overview. What does it do? Why did you build it? What problem does it solve? And why should those people care? And then I watch them be tongue tied for an hour. Uh-huh. And all they can do is present the details of how it works. And then we'd have to stop. We'd say, I completely appreciate it was hard work to get it to do that thing you said it does. And I'm sure it does it well. What I care about is I'm going to have to go deal with some salespeople. And those salespeople are going to want to know, who should I call on? What is our unique value proposition? What words shall I do to determine whether they have said problem or not? And how do I put that in a bottle and make sure it's on our website so everybody else can see it and they know what we do and why we do it? We'll have to get back with you on that. But are we still on a go for Tuesday? Yeah. And so what are we left with? We're left with a lot of making stuff up. We make it look really nice and professional. We use the latest design thoughts and processes, make sure that the colors are fine on the color wheel and all of the wonderful things that we do. Make sure the words are impactful and bold and direct. And then 6 months later, we're sitting down at the table in a staff meeting and going, what happened? Well, we spent all of this money. We created all of these materials. What happened? And then watch the blamestorming meetings start.
Mm-hmm.
Blamestorming,
I love that.
Marketing blaming this, and it happens in most companies. Sometimes it's very polite. It's more passive aggressive, and in other companies, it's pound your desk, your fist on the desk. But it's happening, and that creates distrust, and that distrust then carries over to the next time we launch. And there's no transparency to what's going on, right? So the way that I approach what I call launch objectives is around OKRs, objectives and key results. So people can look at that, and the beautiful thing about OKRs is they're designed to be visible to everybody who needs to know. And that's pretty much everybody in the organization. And so everybody can look at that and go, oh, I see how what I do impacts that key result. And then I can build in turn my objectives and key results off of those, and it just cascades down. And so it isn't just me getting a list of deliverables, on email and saying, Dave, I need these six things done by the end of the month. It's like, these are the things that are going to help us get to that key result. And if we get to that key result, we're going to hit our numbers for the year, and everybody's going to get rewarded for that.
Yes. I wholeheartedly agree with you. And the one thing that was going through my brain when you were talking about transparency and collaboration was, do you feel like one giant way that companies can have more successful launches is by managing the risk up front?
Absolutely.
Talking about what those risks are.
It's in our process. One of the things I talk about pretty early on is assessing launch risk, and the whole point there is just to get a sense of reality. Right? Mm-hmm. How big a deal is this going to be for our organization? Have we sold to these kind of people before? Have we had this kind of product before? Have we ever supported it before? Has it ever been in our distribution network? Have our partners dealt with this before? And so all of those questions help raise that level of, yeah, we're big. We've been around for a while. We make a lot of money. We have nice cars in the parking lot. But are we going to fail here? Are we going to be so full of ourselves that we're not going to recognize the obvious risk we're walking into? I have a little tool for that. If anybody wants it, they can reach out to me at dave@brainkraft.com. That's BrainKraft. So just think German spelling. So BrainKraft. And I've got a nifty little tool. It's simple. It's a 2x3. It's like pick a box and it'll tell you where your risk is. And that'll at least get you going. It's that failure to recognize. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine worked for a pretty big company, big now, that makes products for law enforcement. And they've been wildly successful all over the world. And they decided to go into a new line of business. And that new line of business was complementary. Police officers would wear this thing in their day-to-day job. And so they just plowed right into the market and said, well, it's just another product for first responders, so we shouldn't have any trouble. Well, it took them a little while to figure out, it'd eventually get to the first responder, where the money came from, who were the buyers, who were the technical evaluators, and everybody involved in saying, yes, I'll give you money, was different than what they were accustomed to. So all of their patterns of selling and marketing and the marketing channels they used and the shows they went to were not the right ones. And so they had to, luckily it didn't hurt them too badly, but they had to really rethink this as almost like a separate line of business, not just another product within an existing line of business, an existing law.
I find really interesting, and I've been stalking your site and your process and all that, because it so resonates with me. And one of the things that jumped out, and you kind of just described it, Allison, you let it off when you talk about how do you evaluating the risk. And
Mm-hmm.
what your process really reminds me of in the manufacturing world is like FMEAs, failure mode and effect analysis. Because what it does is it's if you do it correctly, it's a disciplined approach to what are the things that can go wrong, putting a sense of scale to the impact that would happen to the end result should that thing go wrong, and then what are you doing to mitigate it? And the more thoroughly you go through that, you do that on process FEMA. Hey, we've already built this thing. Now we're going to run the product. Why wouldn't you apply, which you are, through the whole product launch thing?
Right.
So
right.
It's just that whole thing makes sense.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. It's not saying this is so big, it's so scary, we should never do it. It's just walking in with a sense of reality of, okay, we've done these three things before. It would make sense that we should be able to replicate our success there. But this part of the business has never done that before. That represents a risk to us. What do we need to do to shore it up?
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
I know.
Right? But what happens is egos get involved.
Yep.
Right? We're the biggest guy on the block, so we can't screw up, but they do. Big companies, they mess up all the time. It's no surprise. All you got to do is read the news. Here's a perfect example right now. And I'm sorry to all my friends who work there. So NVIDIA came out with a brand new set of GPUs, like for graphics cards for the gamers, right? So like my son's this rabid gamer, right? He gets involved with that. Any parent who has kids, they're gaming something. Well, this one, makes it better, faster, cheaper. Well, they completely overshot the demand. And then, of course, COVID hit and the pandemic. So I was getting an earful daily from my son about how could this big company screw up so badly? And I'm just trying to spend my money and buy a new card and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, and I use this as an opportunity to explain, this is why I do what I do. Companies like that mess up all the time. Mm-hmm. They don't intend to mess up. They've got NVIDIA is a great company. They got lots of great products, but they just goofed on this one. And it could be for things that are way outside of their control, given the pandemic, or it could have been they just grossly underestimated the demand, then didn't have the manufacturing capacity to pull it off. And so now their supply chain doesn't have what they need to satisfy my kid who wants to spend $600-700 on a graphics card. Right?
Wow. Teaching moment.
Well, that would have been part of that mitigating risk conversation.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say we underestimate, and, it's like, it always reminds me of watching that commercial where they're watching the monitor and they just launched the product. And it's like, oh, we got a sale. Yeah. Oh, God, 10 more. And then it was like, holy shit. Now what are we going to do? There's so many people that want this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. For most people, it's the, it's the what happened launch, right? It's like you get a first couple of sales and then boom, falls off the cliff, and then sales won't touch it. They won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And years ago, I was in the sales team. As in tech, we call them sales engineers. So it's the technical pre-sales component of selling. And I learned years ago, man, you do not get a second chance for a flub up. If you mess up with the sales team, they're going to be standing back a little bit, because here's what they know about you and what they know about them, right? I don't make my numbers. What happens to me? I get the opportunity to explore new employment opportunities, right? You get to go back and build another product.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's an example of risk, right?
Yeah.
So right there. So the product manager or any of the product people, the engineering side, they don't get fired. They get to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Usually.
One thing that I wanted to ask you about that I'm curious is, do you feel like, or do you see companies making this mistake where it's launch and then nothing?
Crickets.
Right? So you do this big hullabaloo and you get everybody excited. And then, I don't know, 6 months later, what are you doing to nurture those customers? What are you doing to continue? I feel like the question to ask to prevent that is launch, and then what's next?
Yeah. So there you go.
On that?
So or it could be a little bit of that, build it and they will come, because we're the smartest people in the room and we know what you need and we'll build it for you. And you will line up, for a week before the product's available and camp out and we'll have it for you. Well, it doesn't happen that way. And a launch isn't, I look at launch as 3 distinct chunks. If you want to call them phases, that's fine by me. But it's like the beginning is all about planning, right? It's risk mitigation and understanding customers and where are the market segments we should go after and who are our competitors? Are there any new ones? And what's our positioning and message and UVP? And all of that stuff is all about the planning. It's the upfront. And then there's the part in the middle that's really hard, and that is getting the organization ready, right? So all the prep plans and all the assessing readiness, and sales readiness is not handing your sales team, here's the presentation. This is a tool in a toolbox of things. But I, as the VP of sales, I want to know, is my team ready to actually have a conversation with a prospect or a customer? And can they sell? Can they actually walk through the process? And can they get someone to say yes and give us money? There's that aspect of it, which is in the middle. And then there's the aspect that most people think about, which begins when we have the big, beer and pizza, or the products available. Yoo-hoo, let's look at the screen. That requires, that's another whole phase in a launch. It's monitoring your launch performance metrics. Are we trending in the right direction? Do we need to pivot? because it's not working out the way we thought, or it is working out far better than we thought, and we have to pivot the other way. Are there any dropouts or any kind of gaps that we're missing? How are partners performing? So there's things we want to monitor to make sure that it's, it isn't just, hey, here you go. Love you, mean it. I hope it works out for you, sales. It's got to be, hey, we're going to be watching back here behind the studio. We're going to look at all the numbers. We're going to watch them on the screen, and we're going to jump in and help where we can. We may make some adjustments because this is not a perfect science, right? And we'll learn as we go, and we'll learn together. And then the last part of that is to say, did we hit our objectives or not? And have what in the tech world we like to call retrospective. I just call it a review because that's a shorter word. But a review is basically saying, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? What will we do differently? What will we do differently next time? And what won't we do next time? Right? Because it hurt. I mean, so then that rolls back into, if you will, the tribal knowledge of the organization, so that the next time around it gets a little better, and we tweak it a little bit, and we adjust this, and we make it work. I would be most happy when an organization applies what I teach them, and then they modify it to fit their organization after they've learned. Right? They get better, and they get better, and they get better.
I love that. Well, Robin Sharma has a saying, and he says, change is hard. And I'm going to replace the word change with launch. Launches are hard in the beginning. They're messy in the middle, and they're beautiful in the end.
That's it. I love that. That's exactly it.
I just pulled that
they're
right out.
To do it well. Yeah. Spike the ball. That's right. Yeah. Dave out. Allison out. It is. I mean, the planning part is all fun, and you get to do fun things, and you get to create documents and spreadsheets, and people go, "Oh, that's just so wonderful. It's brilliant." But the hard work is the execution of that plan, because there's a lot of people who won't necessarily agree with what you're saying. They won't buy off on this is what we need to be doing. And they'll just be passive aggressive, and they'll sit in the meetings and they'll smile and they go, oh yeah, thumbs up. Let's go get some coffee. But they won't actually do the work. And it's hard for somebody, especially when it comes to who is it that manages or directs the launch. It moves around. You might get it one time, Allison, and Ray, you get it the next time. I get it the next time. And so it's not like you have one person who sits there for a year or two waiting for the next product to be done and say, oh, good, now I got to do a product launch. We're not going to keep personnel around like that. It's just, if they're not producing revenue, it's hard to justify their existence. Sorry for all the rest of you who don't think you do that, but actually you do. Everybody's involved in some point, but you can't keep them around, and you just can't snag someone from the outside and drop them in and expect them to know anything about your business, the rhythms of your organization, your markets you serve. All right. How things are done, like where are the sacred cows, right? And where are the landmines to avoid? They wouldn't know that. And so by having a framework to help guide you, every time someone comes in, they can say, okay, I've been here before. All right. Okay, there we go. I need to do this, and then I need to get that done. I need to get these people together. And they can see some structure to how they're doing it to give them confidence that they're heading in the right direction.
Yes. Well, this is sad news, but we have to wrap up.
Was it that fast?
So fast.
How?
But one more thing.
Okay.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
I can always count on you.
As I mentioned, I spent a lot of time on the site, and you've got some really cool stuff that is downloadable, I might add.
Oh, yeah.
Provided you sign up and you get access to the newsletter, which I have done. So I'm in there, and one of the awesome things that's downloadable is the graphic associated with the process that you've so kindly shared and described with us today. And along those lines, I want to leave a little teaser. I don't want to go too much into the details about that particular graphic, other than I would like you to share the donut story.
Okay. Well, so I was working on coming up with a way to graphically represent this framework. And gosh, if you do any searches on Google and look at images around processes or frameworks, you're just going to see a lot of rectangles and a lot of squares, and it's boring and dull. And I'm like, I need it. It's not representing what's in my head. I can't get it out of my head. But so I have twin girls, and they went out one Saturday morning, and I think they got donuts from, the donut shop. It probably was Krispy Kreme, and they came in and they put the donuts on the island, and they flipped it open, and I had my coffee, and I reached in for a donut, and I looked at it, and I said, "That's it. It's donuts." My wife said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "The framework. It's about donuts." I thought you're about launching products. I said, "No, it's the circles, how they interlock with each other and how they're tied to each other. It's not, they're not like boxes with lines connecting to them. They actually touch and they connect." And then I drew exactly. And then but they're not like a chain either. Yeah. So it was there. So I wanted to show that the launch is not a process, but it's a set of interlocking processes in different parts of the business, and that all of them have to coordinate to get to the outcome that leadership is expecting. I say leadership meaning the CEO, the board of directors, and too often it just doesn't happen. So I think we're onto something, getting some traction. Yes, please go out and register and download the framework. I think you'll love it. If you want more, just ping me, and I can talk to you. Whoever wants to, I can talk to them about it all day long.
And from time to time, I know you've got one coming up that'll probably happen before this airs, but I know you show up online on LinkedIn every now and then with kind of an Ask Me Anything, type of event. So those of our listeners, keep an eye out for Dave. Watch him on LinkedIn, follow him, love and like us. But listen, the cool people we have on our show, they do awesome stuff all the time. So well,
thank you. I feel humbled. Thank you.
So
for sure. Well, we can't thank you enough, Dave. This has been such a cool time, and I have learned so much from you, by the way, about launches, and I hope our listeners have too. And I want to encourage everybody, like Ray said, run, don't walk to BrainKraft.com and connect with Dave.
And I've been delighted to be on here. You nailed it. You're going to say we're going to be on for about 30 minutes and it'll fly. It did. It was such an enjoyable time. I'd be happy to do this anytime. Anytime you want to talk about anything. I can talk about anything. I can talk about, I have a lot of new pandemic skills. I can grout tile. I can talk about, I have raised beds in my garden. I know how to level doors now.
We could do a whole episode on dogs and your wineliners.
Dogs. You probably heard my dogs barking in the background.
Good point. That's awesome. Dave, it's been great.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for being with us. All our friends and fans out there, love us, like us, tell your friends about us, find us. We're all over the place. 8, 10, 50 different podcast sources out there. We're the ones. Come find us because you sure matter to us. You are important. Our listeners, we love you. And keep manufacturing out loud because we need you.
Thank you for listening to MFG Out Loud with Ray Zaganto and Allison DeFore. You can subscribe and find show notes at mfgoutloud.com.